Good morning. What's up, everybody? I'm Jacob Soboroff. It is Sunday, June 28th, and you are watching Connect. You know my happy place is an election day, and we are once again just days away from another important primary election here in America. Voters will head to the polls in Colorado to vote in primaries for the governorship and the House and the Senate and other state races. And after the progressive sweep in New York City on Tuesday, one House race just got really, really interesting. In New York, three candidates backed by Democratic Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani won their primaries, knocking out two incumbent Democrats in a powerful show of force against the establishment. And to centrist Democrats, these wins are not just any Democratic wins. They are a warning sign that the playbook that they have been running on might not be what their voters want anymore. Progressives are on a hot streak, and Donald Trump is already running with it. He is doing what he does best. He's putting his own spin on the messaging and slinging around familiar insults.
They're communists, they're not social democrats. They want to completely destroy the traditional American way of life. Communism is very easy to sell. It destroys everything, but it's very easy. I'll be honest, I think I'd be the greatest communist in history.
Okay. Well, let me get this straight. Communists are bad and will destroy America, but he would be the greatest communist in history. Cool. Anyway, let me state the obvious. Those progressive candidates won in deep blue New York City, so it is not exactly a full referendum on the midterms in November. And moderate Democrats have been doing well in races far more likely to decide control of Congress. But we cannot ignore that Tuesday's primaries were an undeniable sign that Americans are tired of the status quo. And this is bigger than one city or one mayor. Progressive candidates are hoping to ride this wave in races all across the nation. Take Abdul El Sayed, for example. He is a progressive former public health official endorsed by Bernie Sanders, running for a competitive seat in Michigan to replace retiring Democratic Senator Gary Peters. He told Politico this: "It's happening in New York. It is happening in Michigan. I think we are seeing it happen across the country now. Folks are sick and tired of being sick and tired." Or take a look at what's going on in Wisconsin. Francesca Hong, a candidate running on the Democratic Socialists of America campaign and playbook, is looking to win the governor's seat there. She is gaining traction in the polls and says it is time Wisconsin and Democrats tried something new.
I was at the Democratic convention this past weekend, and I got asked over and over again about, we love your campaign, we love what you stand for, your policies are amazing, it's so thorough, but can you win? I wouldn't be running if I didn't think we could win.
And this all brings us back to Colorado and the race to watch on Tuesday. Melat Quiros is a 29-year-old Democratic socialist giving incumbent Congresswoman Diana DeGette her biggest primary challenge in nearly 30 years. Quiros is an Ethiopian immigrant, an attorney, a barista, and a PhD student. And Melat Quiros joins me now. She is running in the Democratic primary for Colorado's 1st congressional district. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jacob.
How are you feeling? What stands between you and victory on Tuesday?
Right now, we're feeling fantastic. We're seeing millions of dollars being poured in by corporate PACs and super PACs and anonymous super PACs with dark money. But we know for a fact that we are going to be able to beat all of those dollars because we have thousands of volunteers knocking on doors all across the city, talking to our neighbors about the values we care about, the policies that we want to see, and the world that we want to live in.
I've been watching the race relatively closely and digging in over the last couple of days, and you are running the strongest challenge to Diana DeGette in 30 years. Why do you think you, someone with no political experience, at least in the vein that she has, is resonating with people?
I think candidates have a responsibility to meet voters where they're at. And that's what we started with this campaign over 11 months ago. In bookstores, in coffee shops, in bars, in restaurants, meeting voters where they're at, talking about the concerns that they have, not only about our government, but the state of our country right now and how we are actually going to move forward and what kind of policies we need to get that done. And in Denver, we are a city that is extremely progressive, extremely young. We've passed things like universal pre-K, like term limits, like publicly financed elections. Our campaign campaign is the only campaign in this race with every single one of those issues on our platform. We're resonating with the voters because we're fighting for the things that they care about.
The acrimony in this election has sort of turned up, and progressive leaders in your state are criticizing you, declining to call the deadly firebombing attack last year on a Jewish community rally in Boulder anti-Semitic, and you've also been criticized over your comments tied to October 7th. Views over Israel seem like a common line of attack between Democratic Socialists and mainstream Democrats in all of these primary elections. But what's your response to members of your own party, especially the progressive Democrats in your state who are criticizing you?
You know, I think what happened in the Boulder firebombing was a horrific attack on a group of Jewish people that were peacefully protesting. It has made many Jewish people in our city, in our states, and in our entire country feeling extremely unsafe. And that's why I think it's incredibly important that we distinguish between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, because our responsibility is to protecting our neighbors, protecting our Jewish brothers and sisters in this city. That is my commitment to combating any hate that comes their way, while also making sure that we are not using our taxpayer dollars to fund endless wars and genocide abroad, protecting babies here and protecting babies abroad.
I wonder how you would characterize Diana DeGette's campaign against you, because 48 hours before you and live streamer Hassan Piker were supposed to hold an event at the Ogden Theater, I think it was. The venue canceled the event. This was a couple of weeks ago due to pressure and concern from the local community, reports said. And the rally was moved to the Capitol steps. I saw this crowd. It was enormous. Tell me that story. What was behind that whole situation?
You know, we had several venues cancel on us the week leading up to the rally that we were going to be having, not only with Hassan Piker, but with several other candidates, including Justin Pearson and Donovan McKinney, my fellow Justice Democrats, where we were going to be talking about what we were going to need to do to not only change our party, but to fight for a kind of politics that really meaningfully helps working families and uplifts them. We saw several of those venues cancel on us at the very last minute. And, you know, while they can cancel and take us out of the buildings that we were holding in these rallies, they can't stop us from building this movement. So we took it to the People's House, we took it to the Capitol steps, and we gathered hundreds, almost over 1,000 Denver voters that wanted to hear our message and stood strong with us.
Denver is not New York, but I wonder if you have taken any lessons from watching Zohran Mamdani's slate of progressive Democrats win on last Tuesday.
Denver is not New York, but Denver actually rates socialism higher than we rate capitalism by 4 points. And, you know, when I talk to voters about what we're doing and why I'm a democratic socialist, I remind them that we have socialism already, right? It's in the roads that we drive on. It's in the schools we send our kids to. It's in the fire stations we call upon. I'm just asking that we extend that security to our healthcare, to our housing, to our nutritional food, to our higher education, so that we're actually meeting the basic needs of everyday working families in this country. So that we're not just getting by and surviving, so that we're actually thriving. And in the wealthiest, most powerful country on earth, we're not asking for much.
You mentioned health care, and one of your top policies is Medicare for All, but Diana DeGette is a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All Act in Congress. Are there any dividing lines between the two of you on Medicare for All?
Yeah, the dividing line is how we actually get it done. There is no world where we pass Medicare for all while there is still a majority of members of Congress that are taking money from the very health insurance companies that would effectively be legislated out of existence. It's the same reason why the National Nurses United's policy director also expressed concern for members of Congress that are co-sponsoring this bill while also taking money from big health insurance companies. And we have to pass Medicare for all. We have to get that done in the next Democratic administration. That's how we MAGA-proof our future. That's how we guarantee that whatever sycophant fills Donald Trump's shoes in 2032 and tries to lay blame on all of our vulnerable communities for why the system is rigged, we can point to a piece of legislation that we passed that meaningfully helped working families. And the only way we get Medicare for all passed is by getting rid of the Democrats that are actively standing in that way, by taking money from the same interests that don't want to see Medicare for all passed.
You have made your personal story as an immigrant to this country a part of your campaign, and you have talked about how your father spoke to you about Democrats as a child, which is why you wanted to be a Democrat, and sort of part of your origin story is why you decided to run in this race. Talk to me about why your personal life story makes you suited to be the congressperson in Colorado at this moment.
Yeah, I immigrated to Denver in 98 when I was a baby and watched my parents navigate this brand new country, navigate the immigration process. And once they became naturalized and chose the party that they wanted to belong to, I asked him why he chose the party of Democrats. And he said, because this is the party that fights for working people. This is the party that got fair labor laws, the New Deal, Social Security. This is the party that fights for working people. But it didn't just happen overnight. People had to push the party to fight for these kinds of policies. That was organizers, that was dreamers, that were people pushing leadership in our party to fight for working families. That's what we just saw in New York City, the voters pushing the party to elect leaders that are going to stand up to the special interests and the billionaires and the corporations that are responsible for burning our planet and keeping our prices high. I think that's what we're going to see here in Denver on Tuesday, and I think we're seeing it happening all across the country.
Moderate Democrats are worried that this shift to the left or policies put forward by Democratic Socialists will hurt Democrats' long-term electoral chances. And we've heard it over and over again, yet Democratic Socialists continue to win. What do you say to that criticism from the establishment part of the party?
I'd point out that they've shown no evidence for why any of these policies would hurt the party in the long term. In fact, there is a mountain of evidence that shows that policies like Medicare for All, Housing First, and universal child care would be immensely helpful to working families and therefore helpful to the party. At the end of the day, it is cheaper to house someone than to leave them homeless. It is cheaper to heal someone than it is to let them go sick. It is cheaper to give young families child care than it is to let them figure it out for themselves or force one of them to stay out of the workforce. These are all common sense policies that have the support of a super majority of the voters of this party. I would recommend that the moderate voters that are afraid of what they're seeing right now actually just talk to their voters and see that this is what the party is actually building towards.
Mayla Quiros, Democratic candidate for Colorado's 1st Congressional District. Really nice to talk to you. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you. Coming up, we are following breaking news overnight out of the Middle East, the U.S. and Iran trading attacks with few signs of de-escalation. We'll have more on that right after a short break. We are following some breaking news out of Iran. Last night, the U.S. says it hit multiple Iranian targets around the Strait of Hormuz in response to, quote, continued Iranian aggression against commercial shipping. This video released by CENTCOM shows U.S. Navy and Air Force fighter jets striking. Shortly after, President Trump posted to Truth Social issuing this vague threat, quote, there may come a point when we are no longer able to be reasonable and will be forced to militarily complete the job that we very successfully started. If that happens, the Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist. As expected, Iran is responding. Early this morning, Iran's Revolutionary Guard said it targeted U.S. military sites in Kuwait and Bahrain, according to Iran's state news agency. And yesterday, Bahrain had accused Iran of targeting it with drones and violating its sovereignty. All of this is just the latest back and forth threatening to unravel peace talks to end the conflict for good. We're going to stay on this. I'm going to bring you some updates later in the show with Ben Rose. He'll be here in the next hour, so stay with us for that. And coming up next, we have got some MSNOW original reporting. Rosa Flores traveled along Route 66, stopping in 6 cities, speaking to Americans about 6 issues. Many of the people she met along the way say it is getting harder than ever to make ends meet, and Rosa Flores joins me here in studio next. Report on this country is to go to every corner of it. It is my favorite thing to do, to visit the places that are often overlooked, to speak to people whose voices are not always heard. And that is exactly what my colleague, MSNOW's Rosa Flores, did for her new series, Voices of America. Check this out. She traveled all along Route 66 from Chicago to California, stopping in 6 different cities across 6 different states. She spoke to you guys, the American people, on 6 different key issues that could determine who controls Washington in November: immigration and healthcare and jobs, affordability, election integrity, and also the military. What she found were wounds in the American heartland. She met people steeped in anxiety and in fear over an unrestrained federal government, like Roberto in Chicago, who explained how he now carries proof of his American citizenship wherever he goes.
Everywhere you go, you have it in your pocket right now.
Sí, porque uno nunca sabe. ¿Eh?
There's your passport.
Yep,
Did you carry your passport before?
all the time.
But before President Trump got
No,
into office?
before, no.
No. Ever since President Trump got in office,
yeah.
you've been carrying your passport in
Yeah.
your pocket.
Rosa Flores joins me now. Roberto is not alone. And what is incredible about listening to his story is that he says you never know. And I think that that's the way so many people feel about their life in this country right now. I just said to you before we came on camera, I have so much FOMO that you got to go do this. Let me just start
You're
by
the
asking
king
you,
of this.
How was it?
It was amazing. Being able to be in people's homes, as you know, is a privilege as a journalist, to be able to hear their stories and listen to their anxieties. And, I was in Chicago talking to them about immigration, how people disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, people literally disappeared. Restaurant owners who don't have workers anymore. Vendors who say, I don't know where my customers are anymore because they haven't come back. And there's this trauma in Chicago because of Operation Midway Blitz. You covered this so closely. And then we jumped to New Mexico. And in New Mexico, it's the fear of losing SNAP benefits.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you about that. So in New Mexico, what emerged was, I gather, just how hard it is to live. I mean, we talked about this almost all show yesterday, how hard it is to live in the United States. And in particular, SNAP benefits are people who rely on the government in order to make ends meet when it comes to putting food on the table and in their own mouths.
And these are hardworking people, I have to say. Like, I talk to families who are dual income. Both the mom and the dad work, and they've got the kids, and they still can't make ends meet. So they tell me it's not that I don't want to work. I'm trying to do everything that I can, and I just can't make ends meet. Jacob, I met people who make their own detergent.
Wow.
They ration their detergent and their tissues, and they also schedule during the week when they're going to do laundry, when they're going to wash dishes, to make sure that they can stretch their dollar. And I also met senior citizens who are on a fixed income, and they say they are just trying their best. Take a listen.
I really depend on SNAP for my food. If I lose the SNAP, it's going to be like I'm either going to get evicted from my house because I want to eat. People that are on the bottom of the economic spectrum get so little from the government, and the government's able to give billions of dollars to the military, to people that are like Musk. I'm more disgusted than I am angry, and I think people need to stand up against all of this.
And I heard that over and over, Jacob. People who are angry, Americans who are angry, and also who are disgusted by the priorities of the Trump administration because they follow the news. So they're hearing about the vanity construction projects, about the Iran war, and it just doesn't settle well with individuals who are rationing their food or their detergent just to make ends meet.
What happened in Arizona?
That was fascinating because, as you know, it's the center of the election integrity debate. And
Yes.
I was in Coconino County, and the elections office there, they're offering tours of the behind the scenes of the election process. So they will take people through the chain of custody of the ballot. They will show them that the machines are not connected to the internet and that there are surveillance cameras watching every single minute of it. And as you know, there's also worry about intervention in the polls or ICE showing up in the polls. So I talked to the sheriff about this. Take a listen.
Okay.
Now, you were explaining to me that there's no law enforcement in polling places. What happens if ICE does show up or National Guard shows up, as we have heard the president possibly say that those law enforcement or National Guard resources might be deployed to polls?
I would say if there's any federal entities that do show up or law enforcement that shows up that's maybe in conflict with Arizona state law, we would then contact that agency and remind them that is in fact against the law and that they need to remove themselves from the area if they're there in a capacity of security or anything other than voting.
Wow. I mean, what is the general feeling in Arizona about whether or not their votes will be not only cast, but counted accurately, and if this administration is going to base it? I mean, I think part of what I'm seeing now across the country as well is that people just don't trust that the system is going to be there for them, even if they do try to come out and exercise their democratic rights.
There's concern. There's definitely concern, but there's also voters who want to learn the process and they want to look behind the scenes and see how the sausage is made so that they can trust it. But there's definitely worry about that. There's worry about the threats to mail-in voting. There's a lot of concern about that because there's a lot of individuals who have voted in that way for many, many years, and now they're worried that their vote is not going to count.
I wanted to talk about Missouri, but I actually was so excited to talk about the West, where I'm from, that I jumped ahead. I want to show a little bit of Leslie's story from Missouri. She, like many Americans, is worried about the economy under this administration, and just like you said, what it means for putting food on the table. Let's watch Leslie.
Is your life better since President Trump has been in office?
No, it hasn't. At first, the first presidency was, and when he came back, it was just like the Great Depression all over again.
You would call it the Great Depression right now. What's the worst part?
They can't even afford to feed your family.
Not somebody that you would think about in that particular part of Missouri who would have that to say about Donald Trump. Were you surprised by what you found?
You know, the other thing that she said that the president can't relate to poor people right now. And she said, this is why, because he was born with a gold spoon in his mouth.
And that's a quote and Oval Office. Yes.
Quote and quote. But you know, the other thing that really got me in Missouri, we looked at rural hospitals, and a third of rural hospitals in the United States are at risk of closing. And here's what got me, Jay, because we all have parents, grandparents who at some point will get sick, and we will need to take them to the hospital. In these areas, the worry is their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents are going to get sick. There will be no hospital when these rural hospitals close. And so that was the really tough part.
Which is why I think when I was just talking to Melot Kiros about the Democratic congressional election in Colorado, Medicare for All has been such an issue in the campaign. Do people talk to you about the solutions that they want to see, or do they just say, look, I'm worried that these systems and these backstops, whether it's for my safety or my health care or for my food, they're just not going to be there anymore?
We did see a portion of the solution, and that is what local hospitals are doing to try to band-aid the situation. And so, for example, there are paramedicine programs that are literally going to homes where a paramedic is literally going to somebody's home and saying, okay, what is it that you need? How can we fix this to make sure that you don't end up in the ER? Because that's going to make the situation worse. Because once those rural hospitals close, they're expecting ERs in the nearby small towns to flood with patients. And so there are Band-Aids that are being, considered here and there. And when you talk to those paramedics or the leaders of those groups, they will tell you, this is viable. We need to do this in rural America because if these hospitals close, people are going to die. I mean, that's just the truth. I talked to one woman who said, I would have died a few months ago if it wasn't for this paramedicine program. So there are Band-Aids out there, and these people are hoping that that continues. But the cuts to Medicaid from the Big Beautiful Bill, it's adding extra strain to these hospitals and to these rural area clinics, and because they're just not getting the money that they need so they can pay the bills.
This is an extraordinary series, Voices of America, all along Route 66. You are the best of the best, Rosa Flores.
You are the king, my friend.
I'm so glad to see you and to have you here on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Coming up on Connect, imagine waking up to an endless, high-pitched humming sound for a year straight. This is another issue people around the country are furious about. That is what people living in Loudoun County, Virginia, a.k.a. Data Center Alley, have had to endure. MSNOW's Josh Einiger went there. He joins me with his original reporting. That's coming up next.
You hear it over the TV at night. You hear it when you're going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. You hear it in the morning.
Not far from the nation's capital, a community in Sterling, Virginia, was tortured for more than a year by the sound emitting from the data center next door. It was a high-pitched, nails on the chalkboard, endless whistling noise. Imagine living there. MSNOW's Josh Einiger visited Data Center Alley, the nation's largest concentration of data centers in Loudoun County, Virginia, to see and hear for himself.
All Lindsay Shaw ever wanted was a little peace and quiet. But for more than a year, she couldn't even enjoy her back porch. until now.
It's almost eerily quiet. It's good, but it's like, how long?
Why is this allowed right next to single-family homes?
This is what she used to hear, a high-pitched, never-ending whistling sound that reverberated through her suburban neighborhood and even inside her home.
If you lose your hearing in one ear, that high-pitched, that's what it's like. It's just that high pitch that doesn't go away.
In Loudoun County, Virginia, they're well accustomed to data centers. There are more here than any place else in the nation. But they weren't ready for this. When a facility called Vantage 2 came online early last year, it immediately emitted this piercing sound. Lindsay lives just a little bit more than a football field away.
This is our view now that you can see from our bathroom.
It's just so striking how it just towers over the...
Yep, it towers straight over.
The sound was driving her mad, but she had no idea how many other people were suffering too.
My fiance and I, we complained about it. We said something to our direct neighbors. We didn't realize that it affected miles of communities, right?
So you lived for a year with this noise before you realized that everyone was living with it.
Correct. We thought it was just us because we're right here. We didn't know.
Before long,
in order to sleep better, I've got triple pane windows. I have this extra quarter-inch plexiglass sheet.
People from miles away joined a chorus of complaints against the onslaught of noise.
It just makes this high-pitched noise. I invite you to come and listen to it. It is awful. It's we can't sit outside on our decks, can't open the windows in the spring or the fall when it's nice out because all you hear is this noise and it's constant. It's 2.8 kilohertz. It's well above anything else you can hear. And it's just...
Was that from your home that you did?
That was 1,200 feet away with another building in the way.
It took a while, but just this month, Vantage says it finally fixed the problem, deploying a series of blankets and louvers to muffle the sound.
Oh, I'm starting to hear it.
You can still hear it, but only right up close.
So what's causing that high-pitched noise? Well, it's the sound of natural gas-fueled turbines, basically jet engines that are powering this data center. It does keep it off the grid and make it energy independent, but it's also causing this sound.
It comes amid a national outrage over sky-high power bills.
They're going to produce their own electricity.
After hundreds of data centers plugged into the public grid, requiring ratepayers to foot the bill for upgrades.
You got it done.
The White House and tech CEOs pledging to generate their own power moving forward.
We're going to win in AI, and we're going to stop the rise in electricity prices because of the 7 leaders that are sitting around this table.
There's not been a single day in 16 years in Loudoun County where a data center was not under construction. Every morning you wake up and it's a whole new set of problems.
Mike Turner sits on the Board of Supervisors of Loudoun County, known as Data Center Alley, thanks to the region's plentiful power grid. With at least 250 already online and 100 more proposed, Turner says the power company ran out of capacity when Vantage 2 broke ground, delaying a hookup to the grid for years. So Vantage found a plan B, 8 natural gas turbines to power the systems that keep the computers inside cool. It was supposed to be a temporary fix, but Turner says county regulators simply didn't understand the nuisance the turbines would cause, and they approved it.
Our zoning ordinance was not written to address jet engines running 24/7. They were there before we even understood how they were being used. I'm not even sure the company knew what they were going to do with it at that point.
He says it's something states across the country desperately need to understand.
There's a lot of focus on affordability, and people are angry that their power bills have gone up because of the demand on the grid. You know, if not the grid, is this the only answer right now?
The industry right now is changing so fast, and they're realizing they're coming up against real grid constraints on the power grid. And so they're trying to figure out what is our option to power grid power. Right now, technologically, the only option they have is gas turbines.
Does Loudoun County seem like the guinea pig in this whole enterprise?
I think the better metaphor is we are the canary in the mine.
And then there's the question of emissions. This past winter, the turbine stopped because of a power surge, blissful silence, marred by a cloud of smoke from diesel backup generators. And that leads to the other concern, pollution.
This is what is called the cloud.
Jessica Medeiros and Greg Pirio are Lindsay's neighbors.
Didn't you think the cloud was up in the sky? It's not in the sky, it's this. It pumps out black smoke, It's loud as heck a lot of the times, with potential, bad health effects to all of us.
Vantage's impact on public health is a matter of dispute. After a local environmental group released a study suggesting the center was polluting the air, that moved state regulators to respond with their own study, reporting emissions at Vantage 2 in compliance with national standards. Since then, the state deployed new sensors like these to get better samples around Data Center Alley. And so far, its findings have not changed. Vantage says it welcomes the testing. But that hasn't quelled the fears of people who live here, especially on days Vantage runs its generators.
On those days, I really feel irritation in my throat and lungs from the exhaust.
And as for the noise, Vantage says it's heard the complaints. Vantage Data Centers, the company told MSNOW, is committed to being a responsible, long-term neighbor, adding, while the VA2 campus is in full compliance with applicable local noise ordinances, we have been implementing additional noise mitigation measures based on community feedback. The company says it'll make more changes by the end of the summer.
You meet your neighbors and then you realize just how much of an impact you can have.
These days, Lindsay has to walk right up to the site to hear the sound that plagued her for months.
I'm okay with it because we're on their property, we're away from the houses, and I'm not anti-data center. What I'm really hoping for is the silence in my house is the new normal, and this is officially put behind us.
MSNOW senior reporter Josh Einiger joins me now. Amazing reporting, Josh.
Thanks, Jacob.
Just real quick on that particular data center that you visited, it had been a full year of that high-pitched, even to listen to it in our earpieces, crazy, almost screech. But it was fixed almost, or I guess mitigated almost right before you showed up. What took so long?
So, Jacob, I think one of the issues, this was an odd situation that's a good marker for the national conversation. In this case, Loudoun County, which has more experience with data centers than any other county in the nation.
Data Center Alley.
They were not prepared for what these turbines even meant, right? They thought it was a temporary fix. They thought it was a backup plan. They didn't realize, the regulators didn't realize that it was going to be a continuous use and what the noise and specifically the pitch of the noise was going to be. So there are no regulations, there's no zoning that they were in violation of, right? So it really became a matter of public pressure in this case, and that's how sort of neighbors came together. They really, there was activism at the grassroots level that ultimately led Vantage to make this change.
It obviously the scale of it is outsized in Data Center Alley, but you see this as a defining political issue of our time across the country.
Absolutely. And it starts with how these data centers originally started getting built. You know, look, you can't fault the tech companies. The cheap, easy way to power these things was just to plug into the grid and become customers of the power company like you and I are customers of the power company. Then they drew all this power. Now the utilities have to upgrade their systems, and now everyone pays. The ratepayers pay. And so there are people across the country. I met one woman in Texas. Her rates went up. They tripled. So, you know, now, because it's becoming a huge political issue, and Republicans in particular are concerned about this because it's a White House priority to build these things across the country. Now they're saying we're going to build these things off the grid. But as you saw this county commissioner from Loudoun County tell me, Mike Turner, the only other real technological alternative right now is to build gas turbines. And this is
where you get that screech from.
Exactly.
It's also a story about the power of people. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, you know, we love to talk about here. Talk to me about how communities can and have pushed back, and what do they need to know if they want to stand up to something like this? Where have been the success stories? I mean, this is obviously one.
Well, this is a big success. It took a long time. I mean, think about this. First of all, in Loudoun County, they're so accustomed to data centers. Another one pops up. It's not news.
They thought it was a fait accompli.
They thought it was just the same thing that they'd seen elsewhere, right? And then they flip the switch and they hear this noise. And nobody knew where it was coming from. Nobody knew what was causing it. And importantly, the county regulators had no way to do anything about it. So it really was up to neighbors. They had, set up WhatsApp groups and Reddit threads, and they got together, and ultimately they started addressing county commission hearings. Even then, it was really just a matter of basically begging the company to do something about it. And ultimately they say they want to be a good neighbor, and they did. But the big takeaway story here, Jacob, is people need to pressure their county commissioners,
it's hyper local.
Exactly. Their county commissioners, the code enforcement people, they need more robust regulation against this sort of thing, even Loudoun County. So they've got noise restrictions. It's, I think, 55 decibels. And Vantage is 52 decibels on average in a continuous noise. But the code doesn't define pitch, right? So in this case, it was that high pitch that's the problem. The code also talks about the decibel number as like something that's transient, a garbage truck driving by. This thing is 24/7, 365.
It's crazy to even see the buildings behind the houses. I mean, that's
so close.
That was unbelievable. Just real quick, because we got to go.
Sure.
If it's not the grid or a turbine, what are the other ways to power this thing?
So there's lots of research. The technology moves so fast, right? There are people out there trying to harness wave action in the ocean. It's a race to come up with renewable energy. This is not renewable. This is fossil fuels. It's generating carbon emissions. I'm old enough to remember a time when we were trying to limit our carbon footprint. This is not what's happening right now with these data centers, right? So look, there is, I think, a good faith effort to try to come up with better, more sustainable, cheaper ways to create energy. One of them is nuclear, right? Which has its own set of issues.
We'll do a whole hour on this.
Exactly.
I could talk to you about this all day.
Right.
My biggest point of pride in all of this is that Josh told me before he came on set that he has never showed up on a set ever before without a sport coat.
So freeing.
So I'm proud of you. Thank you for coming to connect with Jacob Soboroff.
Invite me back.
Anytime. Come back. Josh Einiger, appreciate it. Jacob. Thanks. Guys, up next, I will be answering some of your burning questions from social media. They were pretty weird last week. Let's see. I have not read them yet, so I'm a little nervous. Do not hold back. Connect continues after a quick break.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ गए जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है दिल का हर एक कोना बहुत ही दर्द भरता है मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते हैं कहाँ जाऊं कहाँ ढूंढूं मेरा वो साजो सामा तो मेरी हर एक तमन्ना तू मेरी रूह का मकान तू लकीरों में नहीं लिखा जो तुमने ख्वाब देखा था वफा की इस कहानी में फकत एक गम ही लिखा था सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा मगर खामोश है दुनिया कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा बस एक बार मुड़ के देख ले मेरी बेबसी की सूरत मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर